Music management is a very complex position. You're kind of very hands-on. It takes a lot of time. It's very time occupying, but it doesn't give you the immediate kind of financials. So you are literally building the foundation together with an artist. And when somebody wants help with music export, this is even more complex thing when you come from a small place, because when you're located in a smaller territory, then you basically need to go out to other territories to make these connections, and to build new partners.
This podcast is sponsored by Allfeed, a decentralized blockchain solution for the music industry. Produced by Amplitude Ventures, your partners in early stage music tech. In preparation for Tally Music Week, this partnership episode with Music Estonia dives into what it takes to build a sustainable music career from a small country. Our guest, Britt Randma, shares her journey from local gigs to international tours, revealing the real, raw financial realities along the way. Don't miss it. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Sound Connections podcast. Today we have an episode in partnership with Tally Music Week that I will be at next week. Britt, welcome to the studio.
Nice to see you, and see you at Tally Music Week.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to talk about something interesting today, and that is music export and management from small countries. I live in Norway, and I lived most of my life in Denmark, both two small countries that has done pretty well on the international stage. But the people oftentimes would not believe how difficult it is to actually make a living, even when you're successful. We're going to talk about those topics today, and the reason why we're talking to you, Britt, is because you are successful in your territory, and you just won a bunch of awards, and it's going to be really interesting to sort of dissect the financial reality of that to some degree, and also just your experience of being in a small country with music export, what that actually means. But Britt, for the people who don't know you and your accolades, who are you and what do you do?
So my name is Britt Randma. I'm from Estonia, and I work. I am an entrepreneur, music entrepreneur. That's how I would largely introduce myself. I do a company called Main Character Agency, and I manage a couple of acts. Currently, mainly focused on Night Tapes, who just won Music Moves Europe Awards, and I do several things because I'm from a small country. So to make it sustainable, basically, you have to tap into different territories. I'm also working in Music Estonia as a marketing and communication manager. And I'm also organizing parties called Reivile Minuga. And I'm also a DJ. So tapping into different territories, and also as a freelancer, providing different services to artists. Now less, because time is a limited resource, of course. But I've had the privilege to work with so many different Estonian artists and see how things are done, as I have previous experience as well in record labels, sub-labels of Sony Music and sub-label of Warner Music, working with local acts. So it has given a great overview of how to do things, basically, which has also been a great platform to basically export the music, or see how things are done in a more professional way. And I think organization like Music Estonia, and also the festival Tally Music Week, has actually really elevated the ground for us through that, getting more international people to Estonia to get collaborations, partners, etc. So they have done a wonderful work with that.
Amazing. What strikes me is you do multiple things, and for the average listener, oh, why is she so busy? But the financial reality of local music in a small market is exactly that. Not even has the manager a hard time sustaining a seemingly successful act, but even also the band members and the artists. It's given that you might be one of top 10 names in a country and still not make what really is a livable wage. Could you maybe high level explain what is the financial reality of a local successful act?
Yeah, it's basically, you either have two options if you work with artists, right? So you can either choose the path of doing things locally, basically, and do something that is quite commercial and go with this way, because there are examples of these type of artists who are doing quite well. For example, we have a big name called Nublu, who is a local hip hop act. There's also pop like pop and hip hop are the biggest genres, I would say, in general. And like you, of course, need to sing in Estonian to resonate with local audience. Or the second thing you could do is like kind of focus for other markets, which is of course the longer way. And that's kind of as an artist manager, for example, I'm actually in a similar role with the upcoming artist, basically just like building a foundation, which it takes several years to get into like more secure place, and then at some point to basically start actually like earning. But yeah, it's
Mm.
funny because like a lot of people work with night tapes who are actually based in London, and the lead singer is also originally from Estonia. So it is a bit different case, but like we have kind of keeping the main focus for markets abroad, and our main audience is actually based in US. Like around like 80% of our listeners are US people. So like just last year we did like a first headline tour, which was basically sold out only in New York. We didn't sell 80. I think 80 tickets were left to sell, and it was like 650 capacity, which is not the typical venue size we even do in Europe and UK, where we are based, right? But yeah, it's more complex way because it just takes a lot of more time. And what you need to consider is that you it's like an investment project. In the beginning, you will invest a lot of money and it will hopefully return. And you basically need investors or partners, because like if you don't have a lot of resources by yourself, it is not possible to do that. For example, like just when we went to US, the visas for 4 people were 14K. I think most of the bands actually can't pay that amount. It's not very realistic unless you are gonna go there several times. You're gonna maximize the potential of there, but because like if you just have one gig, then it doesn't make sense, right? So it's a very complex word, and like every time like there's like a lot of artists also from Estonia who come to me and like they ask for advice, or they're like, oh, would you like to manage me, or like would you want to work with my music export? And I'm like, well, I'm just going to be really honest with you. Is first of all, music management is a very complex position. You're kind of like very hands-on. It takes a lot of time. It's very time occupying, but it doesn't give you the immediate like kind of financials. So like you are literally like building the foundation together with an artist. And like when somebody wants help with music export, this is even like more complex thing when you come from a small place, because when you're located in a smaller territory, then like you basically need to go out to other territories to make these connections, and to build
Mm.
like new partners. So like it's time consuming, but it's very doable. For example, I used to live in LA for 9 months. I went there with like a program that we have in Baltic states called Buff. So I was working in a music management company there, and everything that seemed very surreal, unrealistic, and not reachable to me as an Estonian. Like we have like 1.4 million people, so you can just imagine the difference of a size of the industry, like in LA compared to like Estonia, where I come from. And I remember like I worked with Wise Blood and Beach House, and I was like, Tiny Desk, for example, seemed like such a impossible thing to reach to. But then I understood, like, if you're in the right environment, if you work hard enough, that you have a great product, like you will reach to these things at some point. It's just a question of time. How much time will it take? And it does take investment, of course, because like to enlarge into new territories, you need to go there. That's the thing. A lot of things can be done digitally, of course, as well, as we live in a digital space. And like this is like from one way, it's like a difficulty, but from the other way, it's like such a wonderful opportunity to connect with anyone in the world, right? So like it's just lovely to maybe find ways digitally how to like reach to people, but then as well have this real life interaction with them. So like you can actually build a meaningful connection, for example, with the fan base you have as an artist. So it is a complex word, but at the same time, it's a beautiful challenge, I would say.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's one way of framing it. Like coming on the financials, I have this picture I use once in a while because I live in a country, Norway, where pretty much all financials are transparent. You can also see what every single person owns, but then you need to register and people can
Hmm.
see anyways. But like pretty much everything is transparent. So I have a pretty good sense of like what companies, artists, managements are earning. And I sort of in my book, when I look at local artists that sort of take out salaries or costs of their companies, if you do like 250,000 euros a year, you do really
Hmm.
well. Like it's not a super like top 20.
Mm.
And people will say like, "Well, that's amazing. Like, what do you mean you can't earn money on music?" But I'm like, "Okay, sure. Let's just play that for 2 seconds. First of all, these people have been investing for 15, 20 years. They have not been making money up to that point. They're also public figures. And you would say they can be rarer than big CEOs. So if you look at, okay, so what does a top 100 CEO earn in Norway? And what does a top 10, what does top 20 artist earn in Norway? So a top 20 artist in Norway can maybe make 250,000 euros. A top 100 CEO can maybe make, some around 2 to 4 million euros. So just like, it is not well paid, even at the top. And even if you look at, you see these acquisitions of catalogs. Well, just Bieber just sold his catalog for 200 million. Like, yeah, that's a lot of money. I understand that. But again, if you look at the contrary, like what he has achieved compared to a tech founder,
Yeah.
like there's not a proportion, and oftentimes a 10, 20, 30x difference in success and the equal value. The reason why I like that picture, it just reminds people that you need to compare it to what it is, which is success. And if you want to take that down to the micro level, like the upcoming artist or like locally breakthrough, that's the same financial reality. Like, I have friends who've won national Grammys. I even have a friend who's a world champion in DJing, highly successful, big plays. He won like an award for the best theater play in Denmark, like hugely successful and barely paying rent.
Yeah. I think,
And that is all financial reality.
I think the numbers that you kind of often see online don't reflect the real reality, and that's very typical in the creative industries. And it's funny because actually, like, the workload can be similar probably to startup environment. I would assume, because like it's kind of like a lifestyle job. So you actually 24/7. You're either, if you're not like directly working, you're still thinking about your work, or like, for example, like quite often when I'm in these like social events. In some ways it doesn't feel like a job, but at the same time I'm representing my act, I'm representing myself, I'm mingling, I'm networking. So like in some ways it is still work, so like we definitely work more actually than like normal hours are, right? So yeah, it's very funny how like creative industries, like it's so much more complex, and and I really had complexities. For example, for one act I work with, like we try to get like funding, like basically like fund support that is like private capital, and it was super hard. I understood that it's very hard to kind of measure the success in music, especially if the person you're representing it is not very familiar with the specific music scene that you're in. It seems like it's way easier in classical music because it has been like existing longer basically, and I guess like the venues or like the awards or like are more familiar to these type of people. But I work in an alternative music sector, so like just trying to like explain to an investor basically like what makes an alternative music successful was quite interesting experience to go through, because they were like literally like they were directly saying to me as well, I don't understand how it works, like what are the measures of the success in this industry, or like in this genre. And I was like just like trying to put down like, oh yeah, like for example these stats are showing that, or like performing in these festivals and like these type of elements, like if you can still like make enough money that you're basically like surviving on your craft only, for example, like this is also like a measure of a success, I would say, in a music industry basically. Or like for example, I in my personal career I consider that the success, that like I can say that I'm full-time working in music even though I'm doing several things, right? Like this, like small measures of success, even though like of course it would be easier to maybe like choose a job that is very stable and is like, I don't know, 9 to 5, very limited in some ways. There's like very specific like tasks, etc. But I think that's what that's what it makes this job interesting for me as well, that it's always different, it's very diverse. It gives me opportunity to talk with so many different people who have such a different view to the world, and I feel like there's so much to learn from everyone. Even like there's so much to learn from different fields. For example, I feel like even sports, as an example, like also much better funded than music, I feel. So like I think there's like a lot we can learn from each other and take from each other, even though I don't agree with that thing that I think music shouldn't be competitive. I think there's like room for everyone, right? It's just a question of taste and it's very subjective. So like it's just I do see with the band I manage, for example, that like probably in like 1 to 3 years we're gonna make it as a sustainable career, and this is like our focus, that we could all live off this project. Basically, this is like one of my
Mm.
main kind of goals in the next few years, because like we like as an example, I can just bring like within a year this project has grown so much that for example, like from publishing money we have received 100 times more bigger amount than it used to be, which shows that
Beautiful.
there has been an incredible growth, right? And like you can really tell that we are getting into a better place, but we're still not quite there. Or I feel like it can still be so much better, even though like we have like, I don't know, our most listened song has 10 million views, like listens. For most people, this is what success looks like, right? If you would have a
Mm.
conversation with someone who hasn't reached that milestone yet, they would probably be like yes, this is a measure of success, and it is. But at the same time, like you can't expect this to still be financially stable project, which is like kind of funny, because it is kind of surreal. Like, where is this money going to then, you know? But yeah,
Mm.
if there's like
Mm.
different partners as well, then like you are distributing your money. That's also, I think, probably to know as an artist or artist manager. But
Mm.
at the same time, you get the help of a team, which can also help you to progress and to probably help you grow faster. For example, like one specific goal I have for this year as well is we have a very small team basically, and we have somehow managed to basically work like this. We have a label, we have an independent label right now, and we do have a
Mm.
UK EU booking agent, and we also have a US agent, which is UTA, one of the biggest agencies in the world. But for example, I do see that we need to grow the inner team basically to reach to new milestones and basically make more money. So for example, like I do see that I have a lot of different tasks, because I am sometimes doing tour management, I'm doing merch, I'm doing, so there's like a list of different things. But for example, if there would be a separate person who would be responsible for merch, probably we could get even more money from this source, right? So like this is like one of the main goals, to actually like you need to expand to grow. And this is a very important understanding as an entrepreneur, that like literally you're not able to do everything by yourself. You need people to grow. Like that's kind of like one of the main understandings from last year.
Mm. Yeah, it makes sense, and I think this is the fundamental issue with music, in general, is there's really only money at the top, to be completely honest. Because even let's say if you're top of Estonia and you go on an American tour, like I can only imagine that you guys have broken even on sold out concerts. Like it's probably not more than that. Like if you can take home a salary that's comparable to like a day rate for everyone, like that's probably not even what
Mm-hmm.
happened. I can
Mm-hmm.
imagine. Um, so like I think I've been listening a lot. I have a background in music production, and I listen to a lot of And the Writer Is podcasts. I haven't listened to all, but I've listened to like 150 episodes. So I always dive deep on one specific podcast. And I think now I'm totally butchering what was said, but Justin Tranter, which is one of the world's most successful songwriters, he said something to the effect of um, that if the song has 1 billion streams, that still is a stretch to live on. Because if you want to do the calculations, right? Yeah, I know. Like, if you want to do the calculations, right? If on average, you can argue, depending on like sizes, the publishing share of 1 million streams is probably like $1,000. That's it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then if there's 3 writers in the room, then you have 350, something like
Mm-hmm.
that. And then oftentimes there's a publisher, and if most of the income is international, you can probably average it out at 40% shares to publisher and sub-publishers. Which means as a writer with 3 people in the room, you're left with what, $200 dollars per million streams. If you want to times it up to 1 billion, that's $200,000 in 1 billion streams for a songwriter. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
live in Los Angeles, like Justin does, like again, the statistics are you want to earn 150,000 US dollars per year in a household to live just comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have 1 billion streams in like the settings of where these songwriters live, it's like 1 year's living on a comfortable setting.
Yeah.
That's about it, right? So what his argument was, like, luckily he has radio, terrestrial radio, which pays much better and stuff like that. But that's the reality. That's the reality of most of these artists, and unless they try to convert like money in certain other ways, which sometimes are successful, you're not going to see the success unless you can monetize in different ways.
Yeah, that's true.
So what are your guys' reflections on like alternative monetization of music? Do you guys have strategies or plans for that?
Yeah, I mean, like we're constantly trying to find like new ways how to do it. And like we kind of like want to find ways how to like, of course, like raise the money, but also like build the community. That's also really important for us. But yeah, it's interesting how as a musician or band, you actually need to think about so many different things. Like literally, like probably like as we are all aware, like the main money comes from the live gigs, right? Because it's a very direct,
Yeah.
basically income. But there's so many other sources. Like you can write for others, but again, like if your project is kind of the priority, then you probably don't actually have so much time to write for others. So it's again like a limited capacity. Also, what I've understood, like merch is really like important. But I feel like there's like we are finding always like so many new ways how to, like for example, like these separate platforms where people can subscribe and pay, and you can like provide something exclusive for them. And I think like that actually might be more sustainable way how to like communicate in social media, maybe, because like people are expecting to kind of share so much, but actually do we all need to do that, you know? And like it used to be that artists were these mystical creatures in some ways when there wasn't like this digital space, right? But like maybe it should be accessible in some ways, like to these people who are very curious and want to know more, right? And probably these people would like to support or invest in these artists' career, right? So that could be actually like a good way to earn. But I mean, like we're constantly like trying to find like ways how to do it ourselves as well. I feel like we're still learning, and there's like just interesting to see what other people also come up with to find ways how to kind of innovate that. I don't know. Have you, for example, heard about any like interesting new integrations? What like musicians or artists or I don't know, even like
Mm.
record companies have come up with?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of efforts, and I do see like opportunities. There's one company I'm following on the side called Even that basically is a pre-selling sort of
Hmm.
digital albums before they're released, and I see a lot of success and potential
Hmm.
there, where like they basically saying for the fans who wants to access the thing, sort of sell records the same
Hmm.
way we did back in the days, obviously with less distribution costs, and
Hmm.
oftentimes there's so much more than that is what ever make on streaming. So but fundamentally, no. Like, there's one part of the world that's really nailed this, which is sort of Asia,
Hmm.
especially Korea, and
Hmm.
Japan, and they know how to sort of cater to the super fan economy.
Yep.
But I have not yet seen anything that's sort of scaling.
Hmm.
There's a few companies like Even that I see like really, really are growing, but I think it's also just down to the association with fandom culture in the West.
Hmm.
That's sort of my perception that it's ingrained in several Asian cultures to have this support. We had a podcast, an episode here on the podcast where they talked about that the goal of the fans for the artists in many cases, especially in Korea, it is to pay back the loans that the artists need to go through in order to build a career. So they actually, with their fans, like are transparent about, I've almost paid down my loans. I've always paid down like everything I've cost. Like so it becomes a participation for the
Hmm.
fans to partake in the success of the artists, not just in the audience sense, but in a financial
Hmm.
sense. And that does not exist
For
here.
example, there was at some point a really interesting startup in Estonia that kind of tried engaging fans in owning the percentage of a song. So it was kind of like a startup that literally you could basically invest in there and like get in return you get the percentage. And like this was done with one of the most successful rappers we have. But for some reason this didn't. I think I'm not sure if this startup still exists, but I remember like in the beginning everyone was kind of excited to see how it goes through, but like you have a very
Yeah.
direct thing. How can you? It's literally like investment, like how investment works, right? So like that was interesting to see, like kind of trying something new. Um.
Yeah, the problem with again, because I know these models,
Mhm.
which are very smart. The problem with these models and the problem with music in general is that things need to scale in order to be viable.
Yeah, exactly.
Which means you might have startups and companies that provide a lot of value. They're
Mm.
actually solving a problem, but because scale can't be reached, and not scale in music sense, but scale in like capital sense, like capitalistic sense, if that can't be reached, it's not going to be a viable technical solution. It's not going to support founders, not going to support employees or a technical stack, which means a lot of these like high impact ideas in the music business, music industry that are very good, they just don't have financial viability. And that's the issue, because it's not that easy just solving a problem. You need to solve a problem and make a lot of money. And oftentimes people who build companies for the artist are so not selfish, which generally speaking is a good human thing, but they're so not selfish that the capitalistic requirement of building this is just not focused on enough, which means they do it out of love and goodness, which rarely makes a great investment.
Yeah.
So again, that's the conflicting element of all
Yeah,
this.
because quite often, especially what I've noticed in like smaller markets, is like your friends either starts to manage you, or it's like, I don't know, your family member. Like we see that quite a lot. It's not that rare, you know. So like in that sense, it's kind of like you just actually try to do something, and you just, I think there's like in general like a lot of people who have, like everyone's kind of who is in this industry have learned everything by themselves. Like we don't have like a lot of like international companies that you can actually like learn this from someone else. It's rather like just like
Mm,
finding the way by doing stuff, right? So
mhm.
from that sense, it's
Yeah.
already like completely different industry, with which is like interesting to see. But yes, like because like I think I feel like in my position as well, like I have to be the business minded person in this crew, because like otherwise this project will, I mean, artists in the end, they don't wanna, like, of course, it's amazing if artists as well is proactive and they are business minded individuals, but like this is kind of not their task if they have like a
You
team around them who can support with these things. Like, but yeah, like you have to like just like find ways how to make it into a sustainable thing. For example, like currently a challenge I have on my way is like we're gonna go to a US tour in the end of the year, which is gonna last for a month. Basically, it's gonna be 21 dates, which means a big investment. And I know we will make this money back in return, because like there is a hope with this tour that we're gonna get to zero or over, like, so we might actually earn some money
Yeah.
there as well, which is quite rare for a second tour, like third tour in US, right? um
Yeah.
but in the beginning I still need to do costs. For example, if we're gonna do it with a tour bus, I probably need to pay like 60K. Where I'm gonna get that money, you know, all these kind of questions that occur in your
Yeah.
mind. And there are of course several ways how to do that, you know. But usually it is
Yeah.
finding partners, because you don't have that much money
Mm.
yourself if you're not already like if you haven't done this already like for several years, and you don't have like a lot of different sources of income, right?
Yeah. I think I've had some really interesting talks in the podcast, which is really talking about where's the next generation of artists.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily have an opinion,
Mm-hmm.
because I also grew up with music, with like
Mm-hmm.
the artists generally speaking are really well crafted. But I believe there's like a model or feasibility of success are more and more going to be artists that also has focus on
Mm-hmm.
business. So the last manager that was on the podcast was Mike Holland. He's Logic's manager, the Grammy award
Mm-hmm.
winning manager, and what he talked about Logic was that he is holistically business and artist in one, and that's why financially that is a very, very viable product.
Mm-hmm.
And we also discussed that with the sort of AI coming in, I know this is more like the pressing issue for commercial pop, but when AI comes in and sort of takes a place of a lot of like part of the value chain, which it ultimately will,
Mm-hmm.
um, the monetization of fandom and connection is going to be more and more important. Like that's what the gaming industry and the streamers to a big degree really have cracked,
Mm-hmm.
and very, very few artists have done that. But it's not just that you can just have the mentality of being a streamer like that. There's a lot of financial um reflection that goes into becoming a streamer as a gamer. And that's a part of the whole plan. Like the monetization in for example the gaming industry is much more front of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's not the same because they're not necessarily artists, but there's truths to the financial aspects of being a creator that probably needs to be applied to music much more in order to create that financial sustainability. And for me, I think that's the most interesting talk I have about artistry. It is like So it's always been hard to be an artist. Fair enough. You can argue in many ways it'll be harder in the future, because things will get even more crowded. The production element of music will be much more diluted
Mhm.
by like from machines versus people. But I firmly believe, and most of the people I speak with, the craving for human connection is going to increase, which means there's an opportunity for artists there. But in order to also successfully do that, you need to deliver value. And in order to deliver value, you need to be fully present. And in order to be fully present, you need to have financial means to do so.
Mhm.
So, like, that whole ecosystem is just going to be strengthened in, well, in this my thesis that business and artistry at the macro level, at scale, will more and more be dependent on financial sustainability and business acumen from an artist perspective. I don't know if everyone agrees, but that's sort of where my head is heading. What do you think about that?
I mean, it does make sense. I think, yeah, I can already see that as well, and I think it is said that like robots can take over that like very specific tasks of but they don't have the emotional intelligence that people have, right? And music creation does feel like a very very thing that is based on emotional intelligence. So like I mean, with the band I work, like we're kind of like taking the role of we definitely will not use AI because we feel like usually I don't know why, but like you can also recognize the music that AI is used to, or like AI has been used to. Like it doesn't have the same soul. It somehow feels mechanical, which is really interesting. But I do think like that the most important thing we need to find a way are the fans, like definitely, because like I mean in the end they are the paying customers, and this needs to be like an honest and value based like exchange basically, right? Because like both sides want to get something out of it usually, and it's not like like there's a and like for me it's like I would try to find ways how fans could kind of engage with creating everything or the world together with us. Like I think like that's like a very interesting challenge, for example, like with new album, because it was created in different places, because a lot of it was created on tour. So like it has songs that are made in London, it has a song that is made in Tallinn, of course, it has a song that is made in Los Angeles, it has a song that is made in Mexico, having a view of
Mhm.
mountains, so we would like to like find ways how to, for example, uh, our label said that they have a system that you can like kind of do like a geolocation game somehow, which seems really fun, like kind of like Pokemon Go, like but with songs, like so like we want to try something like this. And like I feel like for us it is like we try to find ways how to meet with people in physical spaces, because this is the real
Yeah.
way of like actually forming like meaningful connections. It's of course like nice to have like your own Discord, for example, which we have to just like talk with like the hardcore fans. And like this is
Mm.
usually the group that we share the most exclusive information with. Like for example, like if we do like we have a new song coming out, and like already like a week ago, right the day after we did a music video, I already like sent pictures there for like the hardcore fans, and they were like, oh my god, something is happening, and we didn't even have a link out that this song is gonna come out. Like probably like 3 days later we shared like a pre-save link. So like yeah, like just finding these like small little things I think is the way to go. And yeah,
Mm.
but yeah, how to make it sustainable, that's always the biggest question. I think like this is the hardest question. And I feel like it's always like you look at other people and you feel like they have it figured out, but I feel like this is the
Mm.
industry that is constantly changing and no one knows the answers. Like everyone you speak to are
Mm.
kind of like, yeah, like I'm trying this and I'm trying that, but I feel like nobody really has the answers, which makes it like fun and exciting.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. No one has the answers, but I think it's somehow easy to explain as a why.
Hmm.
Because let's say a weird example, just I thought about it, like Kaya Cosmetics,
Hmm.
like it's a Swedish brand, like this
Hmm.
big Kaya influencer.
Hmm.
And whenever she does like similar drops like you, like drops of inspiration in her community,
Hmm.
whatever, when something drops, there's a product.
Hmm.
And that product probably costs between 30 to 80 euros. when an artist drops, it's a
Mhm.
stream, which is like a fractional of
Yeah,
nothing,
like 3 cents or
which
under,
means
like zero point
yeah,
zero
yes.
zero point five three cents or something like this.
So the artist has a product like Kaya Cosmetics has.
Mhm.
It's just like 5 thousandths of the price. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the big issue in my opinion. It's just like the sheer amount of scale you need to reach just to make like a 5,000th of the price viable is
Mhm.
just immense. And obviously it's cheaper to distribute because it doesn't cost much to put something on
Mhm.
Spotify, and it doesn't necessarily cost that much to make music. Of course, there's cost associated to it, but it's just that's the basic concept.
Mhm.
If there's nothing to buy at a high price, and also if people are not paying for music, like restaurants, you sitting
Mhm.
listening to music, a cafe, they're paying for the coffee, they're not paying for the music.
Mhm. That's true.
Yes, someone is paying some sort of rights allocation, but like the end user is not paying for it. So I believe the biggest issue is just first of all, there's not a lot of products to buy, and the products you're able to buy cost nothing.
Mhm.
A- And and if that would happen in any other industry, there would also be financial issues. But how to solve that?
Yeah,
That's
because like
difficult.
in a way, like I do understand that, like to make more money, you need to basically create more products. That's how it works in the world we live in, right? But at the same time, like there are like moral questions, like do we need like I don't know, 50 different t-shirts to be created? Like is it sustainable? Is it like does it go with your personal values that you have as an individual or as a band, you know? Like so like I
Mm,
often occur finding myself thinking about these things as well. But even though like yes, of course it would be smart to have a makeup brand. Of course it would be smart to have like a fashion line as I don't know Kanye has for example. Of course it would be great to have like a luxury jewelry brand that you have with your face like your brand face name, right? So like I do understand how it works, but I feel like there are like ecological questions on how to solve that. And then and again, like of luckily I feel like we are more thinking about it as a society. And like a funny thing actually about Estonia is like I do feel like a lot of people don't actually think about their brand like their product as a like very they don't think about it very business like as a business because like I would say that a lot of artists are quite dependent on fundings, like in Estonia, like and luckily we live in European Union, bless, bless, and we have access to these type of tools, right? And like we do have some national funding opportunities as well to support. Like for example, we have a fund that you can uh, apply for to go to showcase music festivals, for example, which usually don't pay
mm,
you, right? So like at least you don't have to use your personal money for that, but at the same time there is a complexity in that you can get kind of lazy with that. So like you can ask this funding money every like quite often, but this doesn't mean that it's gonna be like sustainable business, right? You should actually think it as a private business that you need to develop, right? So like from that sense, there's a complexity in that which I see in the Estonian music industry, and like as Music Estonia is the export office, like we quite often try to remind it, for example, to bands like in the end your goal is kind of to make a sustainable business that you would earn money enough that you don't need these fundings. You know, the funding, of course, it's great if you can like also get this money for extra activities, but at the same time, it should be self-sustainable. But yeah, that's the
yeah.
complexity. If you come from a small place, it's very hard to make it happen. Like you have to go to bigger markets, right, where there's more money. For example, like touring in US was very inspiring for me because I did see that first of all, customers so much more proactive than like in the country I'm from. Like people and there might be a reason for that might also be that we are not usually based in there, so they don't have access to that always. So it's like exclusivity thing, right? Could be one of the
Mm,
things, but at the same time I did feel like there is actually possibility to earn more money in this space because people have this consuming minds like mind space in some ways, right? So
mm,
like most of the people, like a lot of people when we did the headline concerts for example did come buy the merch, and like a lot of them actually bought like all the merch items because it was a rare chance for them to get these things. And like this kind of shows the way how they want to support you, right? So like that was kind of like inspiring to see in some ways, but at the same time you do understand that it's specific to this specific country, right? So that was really interesting to kind of see, and like just to see the potential. And sometimes the truth is like with I've talked with many other like music managers or like touring managers, and some of the even like artists who are bigger in numbers than we are, like you hear the numbers that people are making of merch per night, and you're like, they're probably making more money with the merch than they are making with the concert if the production is complicated, right? So you're like, yeah, it's just interesting world we live
I
in.
think one of the biggest reflection I have on this conversation so far when it comes to entrepreneurship is that there needs to be some sort of grounding and understanding that as a music tech founder, which I work a lot with, we're often trying to solve a problem for the artist. And I believe that that is a bad idea. And I'll explain why. To have a viable business, you need to solve the problem for the people who are willing to pay and have capability of paying. This is the core issue of building startups in the music industry. Because as you, I don't know the reference you had to what specific startup that was doing like fractionalized investment in artists, but generally speaking, I would believe the value proposition for that startup would be something like, artists are creating music, they have fans, you want to help finance the artist's expenses and have an income so they can invest and then they can have part of the revenue. At the end of the day, you're building it for the artist. And whenever you solve a problem for an artist, first of all, it doesn't scale that much because there's not that many artists. And it's really, really hard making money on something that's not really solving a problem exactly for the end user. Because the end user, in this case, would be the fans. You're not solving a problem for them, you're giving them an opportunity. And the artist, in most cases, do not have the capability of paying, which means it's very rarely viable to build a company that's centered around artists. And even if you have success, for example, like yourself, when you have a business model to generate artists, that's not a given that that's a financial success. It doesn't make it any less meaningful. It doesn't make it any less like that's not a life someone wants to pursue. And for many, many years, that was the life that I pursued. It's just, that is how fundamentally flawed the industry is, that the thing we value the most does not have the capability of paying. And to be realistic, and now I'm speaking to entrepreneurs listening out there, when you choose to sacrifice many, many years of building a company to build worth, we just need to be mindful of like, who are we solving the issue for and who's willing to pay? And even though I support the notion of solving problems for artists, just make sure that oftentimes that's a byproduct. You solve something for someone who is willing to pay something, and the byproduct of that is a better life for the artist. And that's like a macro level, probably the best approach. It's not super related to this talk, Britt, but I think for me it's really important to sort of tie some comments around this, because I have been in your world. I'm not anymore. And I know how purposeful it is. I know how wonderful and stressful and hard, but wonderful it is. And I hope there's going to be one day where the value that people and artists and managers brings to the audience can be valued financially in a way that is a bit more proportionate to the value they bring than it is right now. But Britt, before we sort of close the conversation, where are you as a manager when it comes to finances? Like, do you have a positive outlook? Like, is this worth it for you? Like, do you want to continue pursuing this, or is the stress of it all too much over time? Like, what do you think about?
Yeah, I mean, it is a complex world, and but I would love to pursue this career. I of course do find myself in this moments where I'm like, oh my God, what have I done with my life? Have I done the wrong choice, But at the same time, if I ask myself this question, like, if I could do anything in the world, what would I do? Then I often find myself thinking that I am living my dream, right? And this has been kind of everything I've dreamed of. And like, I had so many of these conversations when people are coming for you, like, oh my God, you're doing such wonderful work. Like I could do that for free. And I'm like, yeah, I used to think like that as well, but not anymore. like,
Yeah.
like that's sadly, that's just not sustainable. But I do think that it's possible, but you have to really have artists who are willing to put in the work as much as you do, because like you have to be a hardworking person. And I do think that if you're doing that on international or global level, it's doable. If you just do it, for example, like in Estonia, and you have quite niche artists, then I don't think it's very reliable. You need to have something on the side, basically, to support your commit ambitions. Kind of similar to actually artists who usually do like other type of work to support their creative project, right? So
Yeah.
so I would say that I'm definitely not making as much living probably as like my other friends who have like stable jobs, but I do see the like long term that it might pay off. So there, like I guess
Mm.
I live in faith, which is like kind of like absurd.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do see that with last like couple of last years, like my income has grown, and like this gives me, I guess this also gives me the promise that like yes, actually the stuff I've invested, like is slowly returning, in some ways. So like that's why I would say like yes, I would, but it's not an easy job. So everyone who is listening and thinking of doing that, it's not like fast turnaround money project. Like if you want that in your life, this is not the job for you. So just be aware. But yeah, it's at the same time like the most wonderful and exciting thing you can do, and like there's just constantly so much to learn, and that's the beauty of it. And you see, like you get to see a lot of different countries. You get to see different worlds, how people live in, and this is also very inspiring for me.
Yeah. Britt, thank you for your time.
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to meet you at the Italian Music Week, and for
Same,
everyone else
same.
there,
And
you're
actually,
welcome.
I wanted to add that, like currently, for example, I'm gonna be in one program which is meant for music managers, which is based in UK, and there we need to do our financial prognosis and these type of things. And like as a music manager, you said as well before that you're not very you think more about others than you do think about yourself quite often, because like if this is your main priority, you like you need to tell like basically your job is like living the dreams through someone else and trying to find opportunities for them. But with this program, I love that I need to think about me as a company, and like I need to do prognosis, like okay, like what is the reality of that, because quite often you actually don't have time to like very specifically look that through. But like I love that this will give me this opportunity, and I will probably have like very like a lot of reflections from there, what could be done, what can like what I should be doing more, and what should I be doing less. So like hopefully when we see in Tallinn Music Week, we'll be able to discuss that as well.
Yeah. Amazing, Britt. Thank you so much. And guys out there, you're welcome to come. I'm going to be there. Britt is going to be there, and a whole bunch of nice people.
Yes,
Thank you, Britt.
thank you so
We'll
much.
talk soon.
Lovely conversation.